once you do it, you can basically beat the game in like 35 seconds.
Speaking of which, I don't know if it's considered a glitch or just a lot of really smart game breaking with a player, but yeah, the Morrowind speedrun.
Yeah.
The one where you get the teleport spell and basically just rush right to the end of it.
Chug potions. I think it's 3 minutes. Most of that 3 minutes is spent chugging potions.
And then another game-breaking one that I remember, and it's a game that couldn't be patched, was the Capcom vs. SNK Card Fighters for the Nintendo DS. You could not entirely complete the game because of a glitch in the system. You can never get 100%, you can never get all the cards, and I'm not entirely sure you can get the ending because of that. So that really hurt that game, and which is sad because outside of the, not the Wonder Swan, maybe it was the Wonder Swan, I can't think of the name of it, but aside from the specific handheld, it was never released anywhere. That was the first time American audiences could play it on a handheld system other than the obscure one. Let's sigh. So I never got to play that one.
So many bugs I can think of. I'm trying to remember all of them. Oh yeah, the missing number glitch is the legendary Pokemon glitch.
Yes.
Using missing number, you could spawn any Pokemon if you wanted to. There's also a fun glitch with the Pokemon, I think it was red, blue, and yellow, that you could get Mewtwo trading if you glitch the game. And it did scary things that could potentially delete your save data. But if you're willing... Yeah. Basically, you would be trading your Pokemon, and in the middle of the trade, the person who is receiving the Pokemon turns their game off. And then when you turn your game on, the Pokemon that was being traded to you will be a Mew. And you could do this repeatedly. Have a whole party of Mews.
Is that because Mew is Pokemon the last number, and it automatically goes to the last number?
Yeah.
Like that?
It bugs and jumps to the last number.
Because I know it's not first. Yeah, Mortal Kombat's Ermac. That was kind of an interesting little sequence of events where there was an error that would show up in the early Mortal Kombat arcade edition where there was a Ermac error, which is error macro. And there was a lot of people that were getting the idea that this was some sort of secret because Mortal Kombat was full of them. And so people kept pushing for this, and there was these hints of a red ninja somewhere in the game. And there was such a buzz around it that by the time Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 came along, they actually introduced Ermac as a character in the game.
I remember
the glitch. And that's not the only time that's been done, but that's the only time that's coming to mind at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and mention these are not really glitches, but it's kind of related. Because there was an April Fool's joke way back in the days of Street Fighter 2 when it was really popular in the magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly, where they reported that you could unlock Shenlong boss fight, and Shenlong was supposed to be Gouken back in those days, which was Ryu and Ken's teacher. What's interesting about this hoax is A, how many people believed it. It was one of those things that spread like wildfire. Everybody was reporting it as actual news. People were trying it at arcades all over the place. And oddly enough, Gouken, man, it's getting worse. Sorry. But Shenlong's appearance looks very similar to how he does now. So it's one of those things where the hoax affected the reality. And this happened again with Sonic and Tails and Super Smash Bros. Melee, where there was once again, I think it was Electronic Gaming Monthly with their April Fool's joke, making people think that Sonic and Tails was actually in the game, and there's thousands upon thousands of people trying to make it work. And probably one that's even more famous than both of those combined was the Tomb Raider nude code. It didn't actually exist with the exception of Modder, who made it on the PC version. That didn't stop people from trying. And matter of fact, that was actually one of the things that got video games in trouble in those years is, look, this can be done, even though there was no evidence.
Like in Secret of Mana, where people talked about the fourth character.
Yeah.
And there was supposed to be a fourth character. If Nintendo CD had come out, Secret of Mana would have probably been way, way bigger. And you can see remnants of what could have been in the game code and everything. And in the game code, you can see that there was supposed to be a fourth character, but there's nothing there. It just says fourth character, and there's no data.
Well, it makes sense, because how many three-player games can you think of?
Not many.
Outside of the arcade, of course.
There's actually quite a few glitches in Secret of Mana because of that, because the game is basically chopped in half. It's quite sad, actually, when you think about it, because there's supposed to be so much more.
It still turned out great, despite it all.
It still turned out great, despite all that.
While we're talking about glitches and stuff, how about patches that actually cause glitches, such as backwards flying dragons in Skyrim?
Oh, the backwards flying dragons. I saw one, and it was amazing.
Did you actually see one of those?
I saw one, and it was beautiful. I thought nothing of it at the time, because I laughed my ass off when I saw it, because I was just like, what the hell? This is before I even knew about the backward flying dragons, and I just... It's funny when it lands, because it lands backwards and it shoots fire out of its ass. Yeah, it's hilarious.
That is actually pretty funny.
Sandbox games like that are probably the worst and notorious for glitches of any kind. But
I know, for glitches, let's talk about Fallout.
Well, it's kind of related, actually.
Yeah.
All of Bethesda's engines had something in common about the whole issue with the characters and their heads starting to swerve all the way around like a carousel. They've been doing that since Oblivion, and as I understand it, it still happens on occasion in Skyrim, despite I understand it's supposed to be a completely different engine.
Mm-hmm.
But Oblivion and Fallout both. And in some cases, their eyes still follow you, which makes it even creepier.
Yes.
They're just sitting there talking with their heads spinning all the way around.
But yeah, the Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, I'd never seen so many glitches in games until I played those.
Oh, you're talking about the old ones.
The old ones.
See, I never encountered any glitches in the original Fallout game.
The game just didn't like me, apparently.
I think it was easier to cause PC games to glitch, though, than console games, because there were so many different setups that people could...
glitches in the original Fallouts weren't the kind that you're like, oh, that's cool. The glitches that break the game. Sometimes you would get trapped in an area, and if you saved without realizing it, you're fucked.
Oh, yeah.
I had multiple times where you'd go into battle mode, the combat mode, and you couldn't get out afterwards, and you wouldn't be able to leave the area when this happened. You'd know because you try to leave the area, which you could do, but it wouldn't let you, and you're stuck.
I mean, I actually did encounter that one now that you mention it, where you, after combat, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you can't do anything. You have to completely reset to fix that.
And it's in the second one, too. I remember that happening in the second one. I was like, oh, they didn't fix this! They did patch them a little bit, but it didn't really help much. It helped the major stuff, but still had crazy stuff go on. I remember one glitch that made it so that you would unequip a weapon, and you go check your inventory afterwards, and the weapon would just be gone.
Yeah, I can think of a couple games that did that.
Yeah. Actually, Dead Rising had a glitch similar to that, where weapons would disappear out of your hand, and then thus they would disappear out of your inventory at the same time. So you would be holding an invisible weapon. It would look like you were supposed to be holding a weapon, but there was nothing there. And you had no weapon equipped. There was no weapon that was supposed to be there in your inventory. I lost a really nice weapon to that glitch, and I was pretty upset.
Yeah, it was always bad when you unequip some of the best weapons in Fallout, and you switch to another weapon, and you go back to switch to the other one during macroing and battles, and notice that it's gone. You're like, oh, come on. And then you get murdered by the other monster, because then you have now is inefficient.
Seems like there was... Seems like there was one of those games where you could upgrade your equipment by merging two of them together, and there was a particular glitch that when you did that, you'd end up with a completely wrong item. Like, I cannot remember what games they were, but it seems like it was an actual series, so maybe it was like later Ultima or something, I'm not sure. So this is probably a terrible conversation to put in here if I can't recall what game it was. But where you would put like two swords together, and when it would come out like a early level knife or stick or something, and they weren't supposed to be part of those file types. If anything, it would be like a rusty sword or something like that. So it'd be like putting two axes together and getting a magic staff. And it wasn't supposed to do that.
I remember in Breath of Fire 2, you can merge characters to make special forms.
Mm-hmm.
You could not combine Ryu with anybody. It would not let you, just because. But there was also a game breaker in that one that if you tried it, there was a chance that it would crash the game, and that you'd go to restart the game and your stuff would be gone. So it was something you never did. I remember them telling people, do not try to combine Ryu with anybody. And it eventually came to the point that somebody told me that it happened to them and they didn't do it with Ryu at all. They were doing Nina and the cat girl, and the game crashed, and they lost everything. So it came to the point that I just never merged any of the characters. I was terrified of it. Speaking of RPGs, we can go straight to Final Fantasy VI. Fun.
I know there's some really broken stuff, but people generally had to look for those.
One bug, and they said it's a bug, it's not supposed to happen, but it happens, is if you make an enemy invisible and you hit them with a spell, it will always hit. 100% chance. So make them invisible, cast death, they die. It works on bosses. The only monster it doesn't work on is Kefka, because you can't make Kefka invisible. Actually, I think you can make him invisible, so it even works on the final boss.
The only one I can really remember is the one that you can somehow exploit the game to go to the desert early and skip the cutscene that makes the castle emerge, and you're broke. You can't go back.
Yeah, that can happen.
But you have to be trying to do that one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
had
anybody accidentally got into that.
It's also the other one where you're in the Veldt, and you got Gl, and Gl jumps. Oh, there's also Invisible, where you make an enemy invisible, and then you have Realm sketch them, and sometimes it would spaz out, and the game would duplicate items. But the major way to make it do it is to throw Gl in the Veldt, have him go as the animals, and then when he appears, immediately have Realm sketch him. The game always goes in ballistic, and the game will either crash and just has to restart and go again, or it will give you 99 of like almost every item in the game. I remember there was oddities too when doing the Realm stuff if it didn't crash the game immediately. Well, the game would freeze for a couple seconds and then go back to normal. I heard some people say say that if you do that, there's a chance the game coding will completely freak out, and suddenly when you're running around in the veldt, you can get attacked by any monster in the game, including bosses. And what's interesting from that is all the monsters, including the bosses, including Kefka, are in the veldt data and in Gal's data. So you could get in the final fight for Kefka in the veldt, have Gal jump to him.
But how do you make that happen?
It's just a rare glitch. You can make it happen with game genie codes, but other than that, getting Realm to do that, having Realm do a skelch can cause a chance that it will unlock all the monsters in the game instead of you running around in the veldt and getting attacked by anything and everything, including stuff you shouldn't get attacked by, which I'm pretty sure you can crash the game because some monsters are not meant to be fought. They're in cutscenes that are going on in battle, and they'll appear and the game will freeze instantly because they're not supposed to be there. You can have Kefka appear in his wacky, crazy normal form. I actually had it happen, I think, and you hit him, he acts like you're in that one area. He does a script, and then the game immediately crashes.
Oh, because it can't go on with cutscene. Yeah,
because the cutscene can't continue. I also had the Emperor appear one time, and the game immediately crashes. Just instantaneous crash. Yeah, very awesome, but very dangerous. It was basically, I got it to happen twice, and when it happens, you go to a fight, you see what it is, and you save after the fight. You do this every single fight, because there's a chance that you're going to crash as soon as you go into the fight.
Of course, they may corrupt your data one of these times, too.
Yeah, and I did lose data a couple times, but most of this was on an emulator, so I had backups.
Aha, that helps.
Of course, you can't do this with any of the PlayStation versions. They're fixed. Don't try it. Or at most, your game will freeze instantly.
Item booping in Diablo.
Yeah, that was a big one.
That was a big one.
Matter of fact, did they start banning people for when they caught them doing that?
Not in Diablo 2, per se. In Diablo 3, though, if you were able to dupe items, you could face some kind of account penalization.
Because that's frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in StarCraft, there was an interesting glitch I saw where you could get a drone to fly, and you could send them over stuff they couldn't normally reach, and make them a flying character for a couple seconds, and send them over to another base just to fuck with somebody. They just see this flying drone jump over a little lake and land next to him and start trying to build something, or just attack and annoy him.
Looks like I remember something about that. That was an older patch, though. I think.
Yeah, it was patched. It no longer works. But I remember people discovered it, and everybody was doing that for like a week or so, and they patched it. I think you could also do it for the other ones too, so you could send SCVs over and probes over.
I don't know. It seemed like it was a Zerg only thing because it seems like it had something to do with casting something in the area. All your drones are pushed together on one crystal.
Yeah, I think it's exactly what it was.
I cannot remember the Queen's abilities.
Wow, there's so many glitches. Why do I never write a list down for these things? I should have wrote list after list. Especially since I thought up of it for this week.
Well, I think the Havoc engine, or even physics engine in general, is one of the biggest giggle-fitting glitches there can be in games these days, because this includes everything from the great Red Dead Redemption horse troubles to, anytime there's any kind of ragdoll physics in any game, starting to move the way they're not supposed to, or they'll get stuck on an item and start jiggling around like they're having a conniption fit, and there's just so many wonderful, wonderful things that can happen because of these things.
Yeah, the crazy thin spaghetti ragdoll mode where it's like they're being sucked into a black hole and you see them spazzing around in the air.
Grand Theft Auto 4 is pretty famous for a certain swing set that if you push anything against, it bumps them and they fly. It does not matter if it's a person or a tank. It goes poop and it's gone.
Oh, that's
Sometimes
awesome.
It's floating on impact, but still, you see a lot of videos of that.
Yeah, the train glitch where you take a car and the car kind of freaks out for the physics of the game, and the train, I guess, touches you, and the car goes flying, and it would go flying over one side of the city into the other one. And then they had the motorcycle glitch in Vice City that did about the same thing. That would send you flying into the air because of some weird glitch would make the vehicle you're on stretch, and it would stretch and stretch to the point that it wouldn't fit in the area, and then it would just...
There's a lot of trouble with the motorcycles.
Yeah, you'd be flung. The texture gets too big, and it snaps back to normal, and your character suddenly gets momentum from that and just flies.
Because there's some with the motorcycle where you'll get on, but you'll be like 5 feet behind the motorcycle, so you're flying in the air behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when one of the passengers tries to get on and they get stuck in some sort of weird animation loop, so they're getting on while you're driving down the road, among many others. I think there's one where you're actually sitting so far down in it, it looks like your head's the only thing on the seat.
Yes, there's also funny bugs with all the vehicles in Grand Theft Auto for most of them, where you can blow up a car, push it into a garage, and it'll fix it, but the car will still look destroyed and drive around.
Sandbox games, Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto,
all those big games.
Just Cause. Oz is pretty famous for quite a few glitches, especially in the second one, because of that whole Bionic Commando wire thing and all the crazy things that happens because there's just so much they could not possibly test with something like that in a game that big, and it gets crazy. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to find my picture of one of the glitches that I ran into, where they automatically spawn these airplanes at this military base. The problem is, if something's blocking the runway, they won't take off. But if they're far enough along, they'll respawn another one. So I have this picture of like 15 Harriers just sitting in a row like they're stuck in traffic.
That is awesome. Also for Grand Theft Auto, I remember you could put planes in the garages, and they would repair the planes, and then the planes would act like cars. It was very hard to do. And there was another glitch in the third one that was the flying tank. That was awesome. You can get enough velocity with the tank from shooting it backwards that you would start flying.
Ah, memories.
And what's sad is the tank flies better than the plane.
Oh, yes.
Much better. I remember dying thousands of times in Vice City for the fact that that plane that could land on water, and you'd get out of it, and you'd fall into water and die.
Yeah, that's before you could start swimming.
Mm-hmm. You know, you can get shot 20 times before you die. You fall in the water, die instantly.
Grand Theft Auto 3's Ghost City. But if you can take the plane back there, you actually see where the beginning cutscene is.
Yeah.
That's what I did with the tank. Very hard to do.
I'm trying to think of some of the other really bad ones. Mike mentions the Skate series, which is really famous for a lot of the videos people put up about some of the crazy stuff they do, whether it's sailing upside a high-rise building on their skateboard, like, la-di-da, or some of the ramps, because it's got such a creative aspect of you can move stuff around and make your own course a little bit. Some of them don't quite meet up with the physics of the game very well, and weird things happen, like you'll end up inside of barrels and be stuck inside of walls and all sorts of stuff. And of course, you're flailing. It's physics. Got that great physics engine.
That giant yellow dumpster is used in almost all of those videos, too.
Because it's hollow, so it makes it even worse. And Assassin's Creed has kind of a famous one where some of the guards will randomly get stuck on a wall, and the way they get stuck, it kind of makes it look like they're humping the wall.
That's awesome. I do remember that the 64 age had a lot of bugs too. Just funny bugs from the them not being so great with 3D stuff yet.
I remember a lot of falling through floors.
Yeah, a lot of that.
And it wasn't all Nintendo 64, it was PlayStation 1 and Saturn 2, but...
Yeah.
Speaking of falling through floors, there were, I remember several instances in the Burning Crusade expansion for World of Warcraft, where you would be walking along the ground and you would just fall, and eventually, of course, since you fall so far, you would automatically die. But you would just fall straight through the floor, because that actually happens to me a number of times.
Actually, I remember that too in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
It's happened a few times to me in Minecraft, but that is kind of a different monster entirely.
Minecraft is just bugs.
I'm trying to remember what game it was where the particle effects wouldn't go away. They'd get stuck occasionally. It's not that old. I think it may even be our current generation era.
Oh, I'm forgetting some of the buggiest games ever. Knights of the Old Republic.
The save glitches. It was one of them that had some save problems.
Yeah, I did have save problems. There were some weird bugs and just random crashes in those games.
Especially the PC version, which I'm still not entirely sure they've got fixed, because my Jedi Empire will not work.
Well, you were talking about sprites that stay on the screen, and I've been talking about playing Dark Souls lately, and I've noticed that there are some instances where the targeting, like when you have something targeted, it has a circle on it, so you know that that's the enemy that you're targeting. And I've noticed that after visiting a bonfire, sometimes I'll come out of the bonfire room and there will be just that target reticle sitting where I had previously killed an enemy, and there's nothing there, and it doesn't force myself to focus on the target, so I'll like swivel the camera and look back and it'll still be there. So I'm not sure what causes that glitch, but targeting a separate enemy doesn't fix it.
That's really weird.
Yeah, it's interesting. They don't stay there. It's like they're just there for that session, and then when I come back and play the game later or the next day, they're gone.
It's probably something locked in the graphics RAM or something that just doesn't go away.
Yeah, it could be some kind of memory.
I have to mention this one, especially before we get too far away from the physics department. I believe X-Play called this the worst video game ever, and I think that's where this footage comes from, actually. But this is a mess of a game. It's called Big Rigs for the PC, and I think it's one of those little $10 budget titles that you get at like the little section at Walmart or Best Buy back in the day. But this was basically a racing game with a rig, which was popular back then. But what can you say? It is kind of bad to begin with. The graphics aren't impressive at all. But and the footage is already going to be showing, but I have to still explain this anyway. You drive right through buildings. There's almost no collision detection whatsoever. If you point yourself in a direction, you just keep going as long as you want.
Faster and faster.
You go backwards as fast as you go forwards. Sometimes the graphics of the truck start separating, so your tail lights are hanging feet behind you. It is just one of the most broken games you have ever seen in your life. And yes, while it may be a budget title, it's kind of head-scratching to think that anybody would okay this. I mean, thank goodness it doesn't cause like electrical fires or something.
Yeah, it has been declared the worst game ever, other than Pt2.
God.
I think it got the only abysmal rating that GameSpot's ever given. I think what's funny about that game is that when you're going up a hill, you don't slow down, you maintain speed.
So you have messed with it in some form before then?
Yep, I have messed with it. It is a very hilariously broken game, if you would call it a game. It's like if you actually fall through and do the race. Well, sometimes you'll start the game and it'll immediately pop up, "You're a win."
And did you know, this is random, and it can be considered a glitch, that the original Space Invaders back in the day, the whole reasons the aliens sped up wasn't because it was part of the actual design of the game, but it was because of hardware limitations. There's so many characters on screen, it could only move so many at a time, so the more of them there were, the slower the game became. It was basically the equivalent of slowdown. So, yeah, the more of you killed, the more the hardware could keep up with moving.
So that actually was bug difficulty?
Yeah, basically.
That's interesting, because that's the whole premise of Space Invaders, is people know it today.
Yep.
And it was caused by a bug.
Pretty much. And I'll go ahead and throw out the Super Mario Bros. 1 minus world, which is a pretty famous glitch.
Oh yeah, legendary glitch. Which is funny because you got a glitch to be able to get into the glitch. The Mario, it's got a lot of interesting bugs. Just stuff that you wouldn't know that you shouldn't be able to do, but the game has quirky physics that allows it to happen, like wall jumping and everything else. Or going through all of that.
The most of them. And it was still early technology, so you can kind of forgive them.
Oh, of course, you can forgive them because it's awesome. Watching some of those, play those bugged versions of Mario where you have to use the bugs to get through the game, otherwise you'll never get anywhere.
I'll go ahead and throw out one of the other famous glitches was the Modern Warfare 2's Javelin exploit, as they called it, where one player could be sped around the map, and then when he died, he'd explode, and explode in such a way, in such a gigantic explosion, that it could take out the entire other team.
Oh, wow!
And it was one of the biggest game killers for Modern Warfare 2 for a long time, so it was one of the very first patches they did, but it still took them like a month to do it.
Oh my god.
And that's a glitch.
Yeah, that's a glitch. It's kind of like how the Roomba team for Team Fortress 2 were using glitches and all this stuff to harass people.
Mm-hmm.
Team Roomba! And they would have scouts that were moving around, but they're not moving, so they look like they're floating or gliding.
There was some of that in Left 4 Dead too, wasn't there? Left 4
so.
Dead as well. Let's put it that way. Because it's pretty much the same engine.
Basically, dropping NGs through, make it so you can go underneath the map and putting sentries underneath there. And you'd have a sentry that can't be destroyed and shoots at the other enemies and basically trap them in their base.
I remember something similar to that on the multiplayer of Red Dead Redemption. And it seems like Counter-Strike too, where you could get stuck on a wall, but it was in a way that, of course, a wall is going to protect you, but you could still shoot out of it. I think Halo did that too, didn't it? Halo 2?
Yeah.
Seems like there were several games where if you could get yourself stuck on a wall, you'd be invincible, but you could still shoot out of it.
That clipping issue, actually, that happened in GoldenEye too. Like where it didn't happen to you, the player, but it happened to enemies.
Yeah.
So that when an enemy was trying to get into a room through a door that you had shut or blocked somehow, you could start to see their arms and their hands and even their weapons through the door. And if you shot at them, they would actually take damage.
Mm-hmm. You see a lot of that since too.
Yeah, that's largely a clipping issue. Like the game is working like it's supposed to. It's just clipping.
The hitbox goes through.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm about out of notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to run out of stuff to think of.
There's a really new glitch, matter of fact, that's only been found recently about the ability to play as Master Hand in one of the Smash Brothers, which was always considered a impossible rumor for a long time. That was only accessible through like Game Shark type stuff, but it's actually been pulled off now. That because Master Hand, I believe, is considered basically the number one character. Mm-hmm. If you manage to select without selecting a character to move on to the stage select, then the game will kind of not understand what it was supposed to be doing and select the first character it comes to, which is Master Hand. So that was interesting. It's strange how many little glitches and secrets like that are getting found even years and years after the game's release.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Just a matter of how much people are toying with it. And the speedrunning community is a lot bigger than it's ever been before.
Yeah, there's some crazy speedrun abilities like Ocarina of Time. The speedruns they do for that game and the glitches they use to do stuff is mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. Especially where you don't even have to fight the final boss of the game to win. You use a glitch that confuses the game and you go beat a certain boss and the game gets confused and thinks that, well, you beat the game and it just shows the credits for some reason.
You guys were talking about speedruns, and I understand that charity speedrun event that they held actually set new world record for Wind Waker.
Mm-hmm. And they only use so many of those exploits. They try not to go overboard because they try to get a certain amount of the game actually completed, so that makes it even more interesting. Though he was doing a lot of swimming backwards at hyperspeed without the boat, and because of the cutscenes of when he'd reach the islands he needed to, the boat would warp to him. That was a nifty little exploit glitch that he found. And, you know, a lot of people complain about Wind Waker's whole sailing thing, but if you skip it, I bet it's even better of a game.
Oh yeah, I hate that damn boat.
Oh, the Prince of Persia. That, because the way the cutscenes in it are set up, which is probably a lot the way most of them are, there's just these little invisible spheres that when you walk into them, and of course it activates the cutscene. But if you can find ways of jumping around the wall, or jumping, like, as soon as you enter the room, managing to get up on the wall and then jumping away, you can skip them. And talk about a time saver for those speedruns, because a lot of the cutscenes, even in today, are unskippable.
Yeah.
I hate those damn cutscenes.
I think if people want to skip them, you should allow them to. I don't think there should be any such thing as an unskippable cutscene.
I think we should see more of those type where, are you sure you want to skip this cutscene?
Yes.
Because there's too many games where you accidentally hit a button and
Yes.
that screws things up.
I've done that before.
And that's unfortunate too.
That owl in Ocarina of Time where he just babbles and babbles and babbles and you accidentally say yes, and you're just like, oh god, no, and he does it again.
At least he doesn't sound like Cedric from King's Quest.
Yeah.
The other most notorious owl of all time. Well, we're probably getting pretty close on time anyways. Anybody got any last comments or got some glitch they just want to cover?
No, I don't have that many more that I can think of. Other than in Final Fantasy VIII, where you could break the game basically by bringing the characters down to low health and then just using their limit break over and over and over. Renzo Knudsen every single turn!
Yeah. I think that'll do it for our show for this week. Join us every Monday for the next PrinnyCast. Our Twitter is @PrinnyCast, and our email is prinnycast@gmail.com. We have no idea how the technical issues are going to end up here because of our microphone situation is completely different. We have never used these mics for the show before. Even the way Mike set up this, the person Mike, this setup this week is similar to one I did Game of the Week review. What was that? Don't Starve, I think it was. And Rover, but we did that one separate.
Yeah, when I was sick.
So he's doing it similar, but he's using a different mic on a different PC. So we're all going to sound a little weird, except for Grover, who's thankfully tucked away in his normality for once.
Yes, normality is good.
Normality. He's sick though, so he gets to deal with crap anyway.
Yeah, I get to have infections or whatever.
Yeah.
At least I don't have the flu.
It's a privilege to have those. He gets to have
He
them.
gets to have. That's an achievement.
Achievement, be miserable.
I feel like I'm missing something, but I do this every ending show, so that's probably okay. Plus, man, last week's ending show. Did anybody notice that was like 10 seconds? And that's
No,
it. Oh, we're me. Bye. That's it. It's the quickest ending we've ever done. And this is the exact opposite, despite the fact we've said nothing more important. But yes, I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
I'm Grover.
And we'll catch you next week for episode 18. We'll see what kind of crazy stuff we get into. Till then,
Ta-ta.
Farewell.
bye, dude.